Hello, let's talk about books. Right, this is installment 2 of my 2023 reads, most of which this time was on Kindle. Now, if you want to skip the wordy video thing and go straight to the wordy word thing, I have a Substack newsletter thing, which is basically this, but with words. It's no less waffly. So link for that will be down below. Got me bullet journal, and it says the first thing in this video is C.J. Ackerly, T.S. Eliot, The Love Song of J. Alfred Prufrock and The Wasteland, published 2007. I read this in PDF format for uni, and I give it 2 stars because it does what it says on the tin. I wrote my exam on The Wasteland, and so this was just in preparation for that. And The Wasteland, if you've not read it, is such a weird poem. I understand why people are obsessed with it 100 years later. It's just full of imagery, full of different narrative voices, full of modernism, which was the point of it being assigned reading and having to write an exam on it. And this book takes Eliot's previous poem, The Love Song of J. Alfred Prufrock, and puts that in the context of his life, and then how that feeds into the writing of The Wasteland, and then does I wouldn't say it's a deep analysis of The Wasteland, but it's definitely in-depth enough that it helped me pass my exam, of all the literary references, all the themes, all what's going on in The Wasteland. Good place for an undergrad like me to start unpacking such a dense poem. Yeah, 2 stars. Let's move on. I passed the exam, by the way. Thank God. Right, second was on Kindle. My Kindle is bright yellow, so I can find it under my husband's pillow. I read Tress of the Emerald Sea by Brandon Sanderson, which was published 2023. It is the first release from the biggest Kickstarter of all time. Brandon Sanderson wrote novels, extra novels, during the pandemic, and if you're familiar with his work, you'll know that he's pretty prolific anyway, and these are just bonus extras. Tress of the Emerald Sea was the first one from the 4 that he's released in this Kickstarter. There are physical versions, and I was not paying shipping from the US because it's insane. It's like 2003 level insane pricing. So I've just got the PDF, which I read on my Kindle. And you know what? I didn't like it. It's really YA vibes, which I'm not into. It's about Tress, who is an 18-year-old who grew up in a backwater community, who needs to leave everything she knows and loves to go and rescue her love. And so it's coming of age, coming into yourself, learning who you are and what your strengths are. It's finding family and tricking dragons, and it's got the usual Cosmere magic system that Sanderson throws in. And it was fine. It was YA bent, but I've read Sanderson's YA already. He's got a non-Cosmere series that starts with Skyward. Yeah, Skyward. That's YA as well, and it's perfectly readable. This was narrated in the voice of a character that's in all of the Cosmere universe books, although not necessarily each book. I haven't checked if he's in every book or not, but the character is Hoyd. He's an immortal, and he's pops up everywhere in the Cosmere, all along the timeline of the Cosmere, and so he's a character in this book, and he's the narrator of this book. And so Hoyd is his tone is lighthearted. It makes the book lighthearted and whimsical, and you know me, I hate whimsy. No thank you. So I wasn't really vibing with this book. Sanderson has said that he tried to do it in the style of The Princess Bride, and I'm feeling that, and it was fine. It was readable, and I read the whole thing, and I probably wouldn't read it again. And I reckon if you're starting with Sanderson, don't start here. But if you're a fan of the Cosmere like me, or you're a fan of Sanderson like me, and you're a completionist, pick it up. I will probably buy a copy when it comes in paperback. through the regular publishing channels in March, or April, but it wasn't my favourite because, as I say, I'm not into lightheartedness and I don't like whimsy. I'm just dead inside. 2.75 stars for that one. Next was a reread of Pygmalion by George Bernard Shaw, although my copy only says Bernard Shaw, not sure why. This is a reread. I have talked about it before, so I will link that from my 2022 reads playlist, because it was a reread because one of my exam questions was on this as well, and again I passed, so yes, go me. Next was a book club read, again on my Kindle, although I will be buying a physical version because this book was beautiful. It is my phone is going nuts because it is currently 30 degrees in the room that I'm sitting in. It's bloody hot. Nettle and Bone by T. Kingfisher. This was published in 2022. It was great. It was fantastic. It's been described as Grimcosy, which seems like an oxymoron, but I think that's actually what it is. There's a lot of dark things happening. There's like cannibalism and murder and spousal abuse, child death, trigger warning there. It's all background. So, and the main storyline is just the main character who goes on a fairy tale like quest to save her sister, and so she gathers adventurers around her from all walks of life, and they travel across country. They go to this otherworldly goblin market, they go to the castle, they pick up a fairy godmother, and it's all cozy found family vibes on the backdrop of all this grim stuff. So I'm totally on board with Grimcosy as a descriptor of this book, and I would read more in this genre. It was great. It starts out with what's her name? I'm gonna have to look it up. Mara. So it starts out with Mara, who is the daughter of a queen, and her elder sister has been married to the prince of another country to solidify an alliance. It begins with Mara having grown up as a teenager in a convent, and she leaves the convent when she's 30, and she sets off to find a dust wife, a woman who can speak to the dead, to help her on this quest to save her sister, because her sister's husband, the prince, and then he becomes king, is abusing her. And she enlists the help of the dust wife to get a weapon to kill her brother-in-law, and the dust wife sets her 3 impossible tasks, and the story starts with her completing the second impossible task, which is creating a dog out of bones. And he's a fantastic character, Bone Dog, which people in the book club complained that Bone Dog had such a dumb name because he's just a dog made out of bones. But I think it's really representative of Mara's character, where she's pretty reads everything on face value. She didn't understand what was happening to her sister until her sister made it pretty explicit. This is what's happening, but for the safety of the alliance, we can't do anything about it, with the abuse, and Mara not even setting out on a journey of discovery and adventure and revenge until she's 30. And a lot of people have accused her of being like frustratingly naive, but I'm like, represent in literature. Some of us are just oblivious until we're in our 30s, and I liked it a lot. I didn't think it detracted from the story at all. So Mara being that kind of blunt person to name her dog Bone Dog makes complete sense in the story. That was such a tangent, I'm sorry. I'm not actually sorry. So the dust wife comes along on the mission, and she brings a chicken that she keeps calling a demon chicken, and it turns out the chicken is actually a demon. It's great. They pick up a godmother, like I said, they pick up a warrior, because every fairy tale story needs these elements, and then they go and they avenge her sister. But the way they do it is awesome. It's got a lot of those fairy tale elements. It makes it cozy against that grim backdrop. highly recommend. Oh, I waffled a lot there. I've got less to say about this next one, which is Treacle Walker by Garner. In the depths of the pandemic, I read the sample of a book on Kindle, which I was really enjoying, but then I didn't buy it at the time. And then it came up on the Kindle Daily Deal. So I thought, yes, I will grab it, I will read it, this is awesome. And then because it had been a while, I started again from the start. And very quickly, I was like, I have no memory of this place. What is this book? And I kept going because I had it there. And it was clearly not the book that I had been reading before. And so I had bought this book and was reading this book where I had no idea of the author or what the book was about, or even the genre of the book, the length of the book. I had just bought it and started it. So that was an adventure for me. Now, I understand Garner is like a big name author. I've never read any of his work. I wouldn't have a clue what sort of things he writes. This book was published in 2021 and it was nominated for the Booker Prize. And I'm pretty sure it was nominated for the Booker Prize because critics just don't understand what's happening here. Like, it's a very weird book. It is the story of a young man called Joe who has a damaged eye, and he trades with a rag and bone man who gives him some objects, one of which is a jar of ointment, and he rubs the ointment on his dodgy eye and it gives him the second sight. And so one eye is our world and this eye is like an eldritch fae kind of world. And isn't that such a cool idea for a fantasy book? It's just, you could do so much with that, but instead Joe he doesn't. He wanders around and he talks to somebody he can only see with his magical eye, and then he comes back and he doesn't understand what's happening. And okay. And then characters in the comic book that he's reading come out of the comic book and he has to use the magic eye, the magic sight, to trick them back into the comic book. And that's all that happens. And I'm thinking, do these critics just not understand what was happening in this book, so they think it must be very clever and therefore they have to nominate it for awards? Because I read all these reviews about it to try and understand the point, because it just missed me entirely. And I'm like, well, you know, reviewers might give me the gist, and all they were said was, you know, exactly what I just told you. So I'm not sure what the point was, or if it's just such a densely layered, nuanced book that the point skipped me entirely. But I'm pretty sure it was just reviewers trying to say that it's a work of genius because we don't understand, therefore it's great. I think it could have done so much better in a fantasy space, but like, you know, literary writers who try and do magical or magical realism things, doesn't always work. It gave me real Piranesi vibes. Piranesi by Susanna Clarke. Yeah, Susanna Clarke, who wrote Jonathan Strange and Mr. Norrell. And Piranesi was like this, but it had more of a story, so even if you didn't understand all the reference that she put in there, and that book is packed with literary reference and allegory, it still makes sense on that surface level, whereas Treacle Walker lost me entirely. But it's really short, 2.5 stars. And finally, again on Kindle, is a book that I've owned for years and years and years, and now is the time to get it read, and that is Shards of Honor by Lois McMaster Bujold. This is the first in the Volkosigan saga that she wrote. This is actually her first novel, and it is a space opera romance. I didn't realise how heavy romance it was going to be. Romance is not my genre. I'm not a light-hearted reader. I don't like fun. I'm cold and dead inside. So I wasn't surprised that there would be a happily ever after romance, because all her books have that element, but it was really overt here, and it was definitely space opera. It could have been set on Earth for the same things that happened. This was published in 1986, 1986. I'm going off memory here. 1986. And it's a space opera about a woman named Cordelia Naismith who is stranded on a planet, and her planet's enemy, one of the generals or high-ups of their army, again, what's his first name? Anyway, he's there. And they spend like 3 days trekking across the planet to get to his encampment, during which time they fall in love. What? Oh, romance pisses me off so much like that. Anyway, nothing happens. There's just an acknowledgement of they're in love, and then they like escape on his spaceship, and he proposes and she doesn't answer, and then she's rescued back to her people, and she goes home, and then the war between the planets escalates. So she goes to fight in the war, and she's recaptured, and she happens to be recaptured onto his ship. But before he knows that she's there, there's like a really 1986 sketchy rape scene. It was so disgusting. It was terrible. Like, it wasn't explicit, the rape didn't happen, but it's very casually discussed. It's very casually discussed that it's happened to women who are already prisoners on the ship. It's just, it's gross. It's very casually treated, which is actually, I think, the worst part of the whole thing. People who perpetuate this are either killed conveniently or excused for their action because of their mental health status. Ugh, I hate it. Thank you, I hate it. Anyway, these two meet up again, and then she goes home to her planet again as a war hero. This whole time I'm like, they've known each other for like 6 days IRL. What the why is this romance even a thing? They don't even know each other. She goes home, and of course Vorkosigan's the butcher of whatever battle he butchered in, and everyone at home is like, why are you sticking up with this guy? He's the bad guy. Why do you trust him? And I'm like, thank goodness Lois McMaster Bujold for recognizing that romance is ridiculous. And why would she trust him after so short a time when he has such a reputation and everybody in her home life is saying why? Like, I'm so glad that she brought up this question that I as a reader was having, because it's just ridiculous. You can see my feels about romance happening here. Anyway, she escapes from her planet. She goes to his planet, and they definitely fall in love and get married. I understand that's spoilers, but it's a romance. It's exactly what you would expect to happen. And it was fun, and I don't have any intention of reading more if they're going to be like that, because I enjoyed the space opera part, and I enjoy them as a couple, but the romance, no, I can't be doing with that. So I gave it 3 stars. I love Lois McMaster Bujold's Italian series, the World of the Five Gods, but I will not be continuing with Vorkosigan, even though she's got like 20 books in this series or something, and it's what she's mostly known for. It ain't the one for me. And there we have it. I've calmed down for my little romance rant. Thank you for watching this video. You can like and subscribe if you like to be here again and support my channel. The link to the Substack newsletter is down below, where I haven't written the newsletter for this episode, but I feel like the rant is going to be toned down a bit. We will see. It's a surprise to you and to me. They are scheduled to come out concurrently with the videos, but the archives will be there, and they're also archived on my website. Link for that below. My Amazon wishlist is down there, which if you have a look, you will see the things that I'm into, but also it gives you a chance to support the channel if you so wish. And I will see you next time. Bye.